On August 12, 1985, Japan Airlines Flight 123 prepared for what was meant to be a short, routine flight from Tokyo to Osaka. A Boeing 747 SR, a short-range version of the iconic jumbo jet, waited at Haneda Airport, filled with 524 passengers and crew. It was the height of the Obon holiday, one of Japan's busiest travel seasons. Families, business travelers, and children boarded the aircraft, expecting to arrive in Osaka less than an hour later. None could imagine that this flight would soon become the deadliest single aircraft accident in aviation history. At 6:12 p.m., Flight 123 taxied down the runway and began its climb into the evening sky. In the cockpit sat Captain Masami Takahama, First Officer Yutaka Sasaki, and Flight Engineer Hiroshi Fukuda, all experienced and respected aviators. The climb was smooth, passengers settled in, and the 747 leveled off at 24,000 feet. Outside, the summer sky was glowing orange and gold. Then, just minutes later, disaster struck. At 6:24 p.m., a deafening explosion tore through the rear of the plane. The sudden decompression was violent. Oxygen masks dropped. The cabin roared with rushing air, and the aircraft began to shake uncontrollably. Inside the cockpit, alarms blared. The crew struggled to understand what had happened. All hydraulic pressure, the system that allows a plane to move its control surfaces, was rapidly bleeding away. The Boeing 747 was becoming uncontrollable. Unknown to the pilots, the rear pressure bulkhead, a large metal wall sealing the cabin, had ruptured completely. When it burst, it ripped off the vertical stabilizer, the tail fin that keeps the plane stable. It also severed all hydraulic lines. The crew had no way to steer. Captain Takahama radioed Tokyo Control, "Japan Air 123, uncontrollable." Controllers tried to guide the plane toward an emergency landing, suggesting Yokota Air Base or Nagoya, but the 747 could not respond normally. The pilots were now flying a crippled aircraft with nothing but engine thrust to steer. They pushed and pulled the throttles, trying to balance power between the left and right engines to turn the aircraft, a desperate method known as thrust steering. For the next 30 minutes, they fought a losing battle. The plane climbed, fell, rolled, and yawed in huge, uncontrolled arcs over central Japan. Air traffic controllers watched in disbelief as the radar trace moved wildly across their screens. Inside the cabin, passengers clung to their seats as the plane shook violently. Some prayed. Others began writing goodbye notes on scraps of paper and air sickness bags. A mother wrote to her children, "Please take care of your father." A man scribbled, "Thank you for everything." And a young woman's trembling note simply read, "I don't want to die." Cabin attendants, despite their own fear, kept moving through the aisles, comforting passengers and helping them prepare for impact. Their calm and courage in those final moments became one of the most remembered acts of professionalism in aviation history. The true cause of the disaster had been hidden for years. In 1978, this same aircraft had suffered a tail strike on landing in Osaka, damaging its rear pressure bulkhead. The repair was done incorrectly. Instead of a single continuous reinforcing plate, technicians used two separate pieces, leaving a gap in the middle. Each flight afterward put stress on that weak point, slowly forming cracks invisible to the eye. After thousands of pressurization cycles, those cracks reached their breaking point. On August 12, 1985, the bulkhead finally gave way, triggering the chain of events that doomed Flight 123. In the cockpit, the crew continued fighting. They tried to reach Tokyo Bay, hoping to ditch in the water. For a moment, they nearly regained control. Yokosuka Air Base, operated by the U.S. Air Force, cleared its runway and turned on full lights, ready for an emergency landing. But the plane, barely holding altitude, drifted northwest instead, toward the mountains of Gunma Prefecture. At 6:56 p.m., after 32 minutes of desperate flight, the aircraft vanished from radar. Witnesses on the ground saw the 747's lights weaving through the mountain valleys before a massive explosion lit up the night sky. Flight 123 slammed into Mount Takamagahara at over 500 kilometers per hour. A fireball rose through the forest, visible for miles. In a moment, 520 lives were gone. A nearby U.S. Air Force base, however, misidentified the crash site as a different mountain, which delayed critical hours of rescue efforts. It wasn't until the following morning that rescuers reached the wreckage deep in the mountains. They found devastation, twisted metal, scattered belongings, and heartbreaking notes. Yet among the wreckage, they found 4 survivors, all women. One of them, a 12-year-old girl, was discovered wedged between seats, protected by debris. She had spent the night listening to the cries of others fade into silence. The investigation revealed the true cause of the disaster. The faulty repair from 7 years earlier had caused the bulkhead to fail. Boeing engineers took responsibility for the mistake, and Japan Airlines faced national outrage and deep sorrow. Its president publicly apologized and resigned, bowing deeply in front of cameras. The tragedy led to sweeping changes in aircraft maintenance and inspection standards worldwide. It became a permanent lesson in how small mistakes, left uncorrected, can lead to unimaginable loss. Today, the crash site on Mount Takamagahara is a place of silence and remembrance. Every August 12th, families, survivors, and airline workers climb the mountain trail carrying flowers, photos, and prayers. They remember the 520 souls lost that summer evening, passengers who never made it home, and crew who fought until their final breath. The mountain, once a scene of horror, has grown green again, but its wind still carries whispers of that night. Japan Airlines Flight 123 remains the deadliest single aircraft accident in aviation history. Yet from that tragedy came progress, new safety systems, stricter maintenance protocols, and an unshakable commitment to prevent such disasters again. For every passenger who flies today, the safety they trust was written in part by those who perished in 1985. Their loss changed aviation forever.